share a few minutes with you today talking about what I think is one of the most important things for you to try to wrap your mind around. And that's the most powerful tool that you have. It can determine if you succeed, if you fail. It can determine the mood you're in. It can determine the attitude that you bring to whatever circumstance that you have. It's very similar to a computer. So if I knew anything about computers and computer programming, I would type in some words, I would type in some code, some symbols, things that I wanted for that computer to do. I would hit enter, and that computer would perform exactly what I asked it to do. The mind is very, very similar. The more we put in the things that we want it to do, if we program it properly, it will do the exact same thing as a computer. A little far-fetched, you think, but I have some examples that may make you think a little differently. So there's a guy named Dr. Harold McClellan, and in 1978, when I was 9 years old, he wrote an article about human potential. And he told a few stories that kind of talked about the power of harnessing your mind. And the one story he talked about was about a Russian railway worker. And this guy got caught and got himself trapped inside a refrigerated boxcar. And when he was inside this boxcar, he tried to get out, he tried to do everything he could to get somebody's attention to get out of the boxcar, but he wasn't able to do that. And they found him hours, days later, dead in the boxcar. But what he had is he had a pencil. And he had scripted out the last hours of his life on the inside of the boxcar. And on the inside of the boxcar he wrote, I can't get a hold of anybody, no one's hearing my shouts, I'm freezing to death, I don't know if I'm going to make it. The next sentence says, I can barely keep my eyes open, I can't feel my legs, these may be my last words. And they were his last words. And they found him dead, death by freezing. But what they realized was the refrigeration unit on the boxcar was broken. And the temperature was 56 degrees, which is a little warm for freezing. There's plenty of air, but he had programmed his mind. He had made himself believe through his words, through the way he was thinking, and his body performed exactly what he was programming his mind to do. Another example that Dr. McClellan talked about was hypnotism. And what do hypnotists do? They take our mind, just like the computer, and they program it. They tell it what to do, and we do it. Things that we would never do. We have no inhibitions when we have that hypnotist telling us things to do. Well, this particular hypnotist had a person standing there, and he said that he had this piece of black iron, which was really just a simple pen, and he said he had it sitting in a flame that's been burning for 6 hours. And at the end of that black wrought iron, it was orange, glowing red, extremely hot. And he said, I'm going to take that wrought iron and I'm going to touch your arm. And he took that pen and he touched the arm of that person, and instantly a 3rd-degree burn blister formed on his arm. So the power of your mind, if you can harness it, is extremely powerful. And we call it self-talk, right? It's the things that we say in our head all the time when things happen to us. It could be positive, it could be negative, but they're words. 800 to 1,400 words a minute. Conscious, unconscious, out loud, silent. It's the way that we talk and the things that we say between our ears that help us to be the people that we are today. It brings our attitude to things. It helps us determine what our mood is. And as I said before, it can help us to succeed, or it can take us down a road where we're going to fail. But what's neat about this conversation is, just like all conversations, they're questions. So if I ask you to turn to the person to your right, don't do that now, but if I ask you to do that for the next 30 seconds and have a conversation without asking any questions, it would be very difficult to do. It would be a very uneventful conversation. You'd be trying to figure out what the other person wants. They'd be trying to figure out what you want to know, and it wouldn't go anywhere. Well, the conversation in your mind is very similar. You're always asking questions. When something happens to you, the questions some people ask, people that are more high-performing, they ask questions like, how can I overcome this? What can I do to be better? How can I learn from this situation? People who are not quite that way, the Debbie Downers of the world, they don't ask that question. Why does this always happen to me? Do I have to go do this again? I don't want to go there today. And that creates an attitude. And that creates what you bring to a situation. So what happens in life is, according to Charles Schmidl, 10% of what happens to us is kind of important. But what really matters is the 90%, how we react to those things that happen to us. And I kind of think of it as life is 10% of the things that we encounter every day, and 90% of what we say in our head as to how we're going to react. Because that's going to determine the steps that we take, the things we say, the answers we seek, how far we're willing to go. So I thought about what are the main things that we interact with on a daily basis? What are those things that are the 10%? And so I came up with 3 things. So first is performance. Right? This is dangerous, right? If we determine how we talk in our head about how good we are, or how good we want to be, if we base it on our present performance, that's not very empowering, right? We get an F on a test. You know, what's our questions like? Oh, here we go again. What do I got to do just to pass that class? Or are we asking the questions of, what do I have to do to get an A in this class? When is the teacher available for me to go get some extra help? What questions are we asking ourselves? As an adult, and probably as a teenager, when I try something new, right, how do I look? I look extremely awkward. I look funny. People may laugh at me. And what goes through my mind? I'm not doing that again because everybody's going to make fun of me and I look foolish. And that's how we think as teenagers. That's how we think as adults. I want to get my wife to ski. There's no way she's going to do it because she thinks I'm not going to look as smooth as my 8-year-old daughter going down the hill, so I'm not putting those skis on. But that's how we think. And we miss out on a lot of things because that's the way we look at life. When the greatest teacher of all is failure, right? We can't learn unless we fall down. We can't grow unless we pick ourselves back up, learn from our mistakes, and move forward. But we only do that if those are the type of questions that are going on in our mind because we want to be successful. So I put a picture of somebody on a unicycle here because I tried to ride a unicycle when I was a young kid. It took me 2 weeks to ride this unicycle. Cuts and bruises all over my legs, my elbows. You know, we didn't have helmets back then. Nobody put those on your kids, and we had no pads, so we just kept falling on the asphalt. But a child doesn't know what it means to give up. They don't know what it means to care about what people say or what people want to think about you. So they know it's okay to act and look awkward or uncomfortable for a little while because they know what they want. They want to be able to ride the unicycle. They want to be able to write. They want to be able to read. And they just keep trying until they get better at it. So when we're programming our mind and thinking about the things we want to become, we got to think about the self-talk that we have and think like a child. Don't think about what I am now. Think about what I'm going to be and what I see myself becoming. The second thing I think we think about is critics, right? These people know everything about us, right? They can tell us any which way to Sunday about why we're not tall enough, why we're not smart enough, why we're not musically inclined. When I was in high school, I had a person who I truly respected who told me that when I went to college, the college that I chose, that I was crazy to choose that college. I couldn't compete academically, I didn't have the grades, and there's no way that I would survive there. I'd be back in 6 months. So what was my self-talk like? I let the critic get in my head. I had no confidence. I went to school. I didn't speak or raise my hand for 2.5 years in my classes. Now, that's not easy to do. That in itself is a pretty good skill. But I didn't do any of it until finally something happened that made me say, wait a minute, I'm wasting all this time because I let another person influence the way I think inside my brain. And what happened? My body followed that. And then a whole new world opened up to me when I let that go and realized that my idea, what I thought of myself, is what mattered. I didn't let anybody else take my idea. So I've got 2 examples up here of people that don't listen to critics. And they know there's endless possibilities in their life. And if they think it's possible, then it is possible. So Sir Edmund Hillary, he climbs the largest landmass known to man, 29,000 feet above sea level. He climbs Mount Everest back in 1953. Tons of critics told me he couldn't do it. But what happened after that? Thousands of people climbed Mount Everest because somebody finally said, I don't care what you think, I'm going to show it's possible. And once we see as human beings it's possible, the way we think, what we think is possible starts to change. Same thing with Roger Bannister with a sub 4-minute mile. Now you look around, most colleges have sub 4-minute milers, and it's commonplace. It's pretty fast, but it's commonplace. All because they didn't let someone else get into their self-talk, and their questions were like, what do I have to do to break the 4-minute mile? How do I have to train? What do I have to read? What do I have to do with my diet? All the questions that are going to help them to become a high performer. And the third thing is circumstance. A lot of people are frozen by their circumstance, or they blame their circumstance. I didn't do well in this class, I got cut from the team, it was my fault, it's the other people, they don't really know anything. It's not me, I'm not in control of my circumstance. I can't tell you when the place where I used to work and talking to some of the students that come from extreme poverty, they think their future is already outlined for them. Their story is already written. And that's how they think. They're frozen by their circumstance. Parents that never went to school, parents that are incarcerated, and that's their belief. That's what they think is possible. And that limits the way they are. But other people see opportunity in circumstance. So the picture up there, the horse, it's a nice sketch, right? I mean, but if I went to the high school class here and I asked 4 or 5 students to draw me that horse, they'd probably do a great job. It might even look a little better than that. But what's interesting about that drawing is it was drawn by a guy that has no arms. His name is Rusty Redfern. He learned how to write, he learned how to draw by putting a pencil in between his toes. And he said, this is my circumstance. What do I have to do? That's his question. To be like everybody else. What do I have to do to not let this hold me back? Because this circumstance is an opportunity for me to become better than maybe what other people think that I can become. He also plays in a fast-pitched softball league and throws 70 to 75 miles an hour. Puts the ball in between his foot, throws it to home plate, 70 to 75 miles an hour. Pretty impressive. The Hush Puppy Shoe Company. I love this story because it's just kind of, it's a matter of perspective. So the Hush Puppy Shoe Company sent one of their sales reps to a third world country and said, look, I need you to go over there, we need to sell some shoes, we need to get into that market. So he calls 3 days later and he said, what are you trying to do to me? Set me up for failure? This is the worst place in the world to sell shoes. Nobody wears shoes. How am I going to sell any shoes? So they fly him back and they send Jane Springer out. Jane Springer goes to the same country, calls him up 3 days later. I can't thank you enough for the opportunity that you have given me in our company. Do you know no one wears shoes here? Everybody needs shoes. If I can figure out how to get them to buy these shoes, we're going to corner the market over here. Just a difference in how you see your circumstance. A matter of perspective. So what I would ask is, I would ask you to go out tomorrow, whether you're going to class, whether you're going to another school, whether you're going to work, and reflect on your own self-talk, the conversation you have in your mind all the time. Are you setting yourself up for success? Are you not listening to people? Are you seeing yourself as you want to become and asking those questions that are going to give you answers to get there? Or do you limit your thoughts? Do you listen to those people who tell you the things that you can't do? Are you frozen by your circumstance? And then I want you to do one thing for me. I want you to go home. I want you to take a Post-it note. And I want you to write 2 questions. First question, who am I grateful for that is in my life? Think of their faces. Think of the people who love you. Think of the people that will do anything for you, the friends that you have. Think of all those people. And that creates a feeling. The second question, what do I like about myself? And think of all those things. I'm honest. I'm a good friend. I got a great sense of humor. I'm artistic. Whatever it is. Think of those things. Put it on your mirror. Right where you brush your teeth every morning. Read the questions. Think of the answers. And you'll begin to see what I mean by harnessing the power of your mind. The way you approach the day will be different. The mood you're in will be different. And then change it up. Make some more questions. Put some other questions there. Experiment with it. Start to think about the things that are going through your mind in your self-talk and the questions you're asking yourself. And if you do that, and you start to become more conscious of that, you will do exactly what Dr. McClellan said allows us to untap our potential. And that's to harness the power of what you have between your ears, your mind. Thank you.